What's up, everybody? I'm Michael Borky. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry we're not going live tonight. It's Saints night, and I've got to watch the Saints, even though it's a miserable experience at this point. But we're still doing keys to the game for Ole Miss and Auburn, Mississippi State and Arkansas. 3 keys each for both games. Please, before we get into it, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We usually go live a few times a week. We will be live on Sunday night. 8 o'clock Sunday night, we'll be live to recap the weekend. Also, depending on how the games go, might do a post game as well. So subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell, and let's get started. Kickoff is in like 30 minutes, so I got to get going. Keys to the game for Ole Miss and Auburn. The free space is the emotion stuff. As we've talked about before, the players themselves probably aren't really keyed into why this game is a little bit different than most games, with Hugh Freeze and his pass at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and the Auburn stuff with him at the end of last year being candidate number 1 and ultimately turning down the job, despite what some people say. That is exactly what happened at the end. The players aren't going to get really caught up in that. At least I don't think so. None of Ole Miss's players played for Hugh Freeze. None of them were even really recruited by him. That's how long the gap is between then and now. And I can't imagine a scenario in which Auburn's players truly care about why their coach was fired from Ole Miss 6 years ago. So it's emotions are more saved for the coaches and the fans, really. But whichever coach manages that a little bit better, that's kind of a free space because of the uniqueness of the game. But let's get into actual game stuff. This is kind of 1A, 1B. They're 2 separate things, but they're also very similar. Just like the Arkansas game, Jackson Dart needs to have a smart game. He doesn't need to be special in this game. At least I don't think so. That is not a requirement to beat this Auburn team in this game. He doesn't have to throw for 400 and run for another 75 and 4 touchdowns and all that stuff. What Jackson Dart needs to do in this game is make sound decisions. Don't take too many risks because he doesn't have to, and just kind of play within himself. He doesn't have to be special on Saturday night on the Plains. He just has to be himself, play mistake-free football, and that should be enough to win this game. And that applies to the rest of the team as well. Ole Miss survived Arkansas. They had, despite having some penalties that killed promising first down plays, they've got to be fundamentally sound. You can't have the costly penalty. You can't have the coverage bust on defense. I think if Ole Miss plays a mistake-free football game, as I've said to you guys before, if Ole Miss plays their A game, I don't think they can lose. Now, if they start making mistakes, if they have early turnovers, penalties that derail drives, a coverage bust, things like that, that's going to be the difference in the game. If Ole Miss plays clean, if they play their A game, they're winning on Saturday night. If they don't, all bets are off, and certainly Auburn can beat Ole Miss if they don't play a clean football game. So that's real number 1, is play smart, play clean. And if you do that, you will win. Number 2, depending on who the quarterback is, and Hugh Freeze has kind of bounced all over the place with when and how and all that when he manages quarterbacks, but either one actually is pretty effective with their legs. Ashford obviously being the better of the 2, but it's not like Thorne is completely incompetent. He runs the football actually pretty nicely, but I think Ole Miss needs to focus on stacking the box, stopping the run, and if these 2 guys finally figure out for the first time in I mean, all season, but possibly in their careers, to be great throwing the football vertically. If they do that on Saturday, then you just kind of live with it. Ole Miss should put a lot of bodies in the box, spy both quarterbacks, frankly, and focus on stopping the run. Because if they can do that, there is no confidence whatsoever that either one of these quarterbacks can beat you, or there shouldn't be anyway. Hugh Freeze certainly doesn't appear to be confident that either one of these guys can beat his team, or can beat his former team on Saturday night. He has very openly, clearly been frustrated with the lack of consistency throwing the football from the most important position on the field. So Ole Miss, I expect to put a lot of bodies in the box, to play a lot of tight coverage. They can't do that soft zone stuff on third down and stop the run, because if they do, if they contain the quarterbacks, if they are able to at least slow down Auburn's running game, force Auburn into third and medium, second and long, third and medium, I think they're going to win the game, because I don't trust either Auburn quarterback to make the necessary throws consistently to win this game. But if they're able to escape the pocket and generate some rushing yards with their legs, then that changes the complexion of this game. Finally, key number 3, finding offense absent Jordan Watkins. If he does, in fact, not play on Saturday, despite what Lane Kiffin said in his press conference, the reporting is that he is not going to play. We will, I guess, have to see. But for the sake of this conversation, let's just pretend that he doesn't play, that he will not be on the field for Ole Miss. Where does the offense come from? Because you know what you have in Trey Harris. You know what you have in the running game. You know what you have in Dayton Wade as well, consistent, been there. You know what you have in him. But where is that production, the Watkins production, going to come from? Can somebody fill that void? And it doesn't necessarily have to be his exact role. Like, is it Caden Prescore in the tight end? Can he help Ole Miss in the middle of the field? Is it the backs out of the backfield maybe helping in that production? Or is Zachary Franklin finally going to be the guy that they thought he was going to be when they signed him? Got to fill the void that is possibly going to be left behind with Jordan Watkins. If they do that, they will win the game. If they can find a way to replicate that production, regardless of where it comes from. Flipping over to Mississippi State and Arkansas, key number 1 for the Bulldogs, in my opinion, is finding creativity. Arkansas, for the last 3 weeks, has played athletic running quarterbacks. They did pretty well, honestly, with Daniels and LSU. They did well with Dart and Ole Miss, and now Dart got hurt on like the second play, so that limited his running ability, but still, really good quarterback on the road, contained him pretty well, limited him pretty well. Did it with Daniels, and then they did it on Saturday against Alabama as well. So Arkansas's defense, one of the more underrated sides of the ball in the SEC probably, is going to face a very similar challenge, a test that they have passed, honestly, relatively speaking, for 3 weeks in a row now. So Mississippi State with Mike Wright is going to have to show things to Arkansas that they have not seen before, that they have not prepared for, because Mike Wright, well, I use this analogy on the show a lot, but it's not like Mike Wright throws with his feet. Like, he can throw the football, but he was the least accurate passer in the SEC a year ago. And there's a reason that he lost his job, and there's a reason that he's at Mississippi State instead of continuing to start in the SEC. Supreme athlete, smart young guy, not the best passer of the football. So when you look at what Arkansas has done against guys that are better at throwing the football and also in their own right, really athletic, you've got to be creative. This is where I want to see Kevin Barbay really show us and honestly earn his pay as an offensive coordinator. If Will Rogers can't go, like a lot of people think he cannot, it was even talked about on our show today that, it doesn't sound like he's able to go. So if Mike Wright is the guy, show me something that I haven't seen before from this Mississippi State offense. You've got to be creative, especially in the running game, because this Arkansas team has shown that they can stop this style of quarterback, better passers, this season. But Mike Wright is capable. He can be successful, especially when you get him the ball in space. He's electric. Find creative ways to do that and get the ball in space, because you're going to have to run the ball to beat this Arkansas team, and you're going to have to do it creatively. Show me, Kevin Barbay, how creative that you can be. Key number 2, get to KJ Jefferson. Arkansas's offensive line, simply bad. I mean, they are bad at most categories, and KJ Jefferson himself holds on to the ball a little bit too long. Arkansas doesn't have great weapons at wide receiver that scare you anyway, but you have to find ways to get to KJ. Take risks if you have to. Even if you have to do some man coverage and stuff and bring extra bodies, Arkansas struggles to protect him. Even despite that, I'm not sure if Mississippi State's going to be able to get home with just a regular, like, 4-man rush. If you have to bring extra bodies, bring extra bodies. If you have to come after him from different angles, do it. Because once you pressure him, then Arkansas's offense, especially without Sanders, is kind of a mess, honestly. So take risks defensively if you have to. Run a lot of man coverage if you have to, and bring extra bodies. But you cannot just sit back and let KJ Jefferson operate. And that offensive line has shown you multiple times this year that they are able to give up pressure and give up sacks. Mississippi State hadn't done a great job of that this year. Find ways to do it. And if you do that, you will win. If you get to him, if you pressure him, you will win. If you have to take risks to do it, because that's the recipe. Allowing him to sit comfortably in the pocket and distribute the football is a recipe for losing, and Mississippi State has done that multiple times this year, have let quarterbacks sit in the pocket and distribute the football. Milroe did it. Rattler did it. Daniels did it. You can't let Jefferson do that especially on the road. And finally, game management is something that I'm paying close attention to. Both sides of the field on this one. I expect this to be a close game. And so, what coach is going to manage this game better? I had questions about the way Sam Pittman managed the end of the LSU game. I had questions about the way Zach Arnett managed the South Carolina game with choosing to kick a field goal on 4th and short. They actually took a penalty to kick a field goal with a little bit more space as opposed to going for it, knowing that your defense is giving up a lot of points. We've had the conversation about going into the locker room at halftime in the Alabama game. This is going to be a close football game. Which head coach is going to manage this game better, manage decisions on whether or not to go for it on 4th down, timeouts, close game scenarios that, frankly, Zach Arnett has not really coached in many close games in his career. I mean, you've got the South Carolina game, and frankly, I think that is a discouraging example. So game management from the head coaches is going to be very important because State in their one game, I think, kind of struggled with it a little bit. And Sam Pittman, I thought, made a poor decision not letting LSU score, as weird as that sounds, at the end of that game and getting KJ Jefferson the ball back. Instead, was just hoping that LSU would miss a chip shot field goal. They did not. They lose the game, and that was final. So which coach is going to manage the game better? Whoever does, I think, will probably win because it will be a close game. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you either after the game Saturday, definitely Sunday, though. Definitely Sunday, 8 o'clock. I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the channel. Who dat? I'm going to go watch the Saints lose, and I'll see you guys this week.